We've got the E46 back in the garage, and today we're finally going to be ripping out the stock rear end and putting in the M3 rear end and maybe the 6-speed. I'd like to do it while it's up like this, but it's also barely big enough to where I feel like maybe I could slide it out of there, but it'll be tight. I've been trying to simplify these things to make the process go by a lot quicker. So here's the plan. I'm going to rip out the rear end, right? Essentially just take as much of this down as I can, take it all off, and then I want to clean it up down there and maybe paint it a little bit. Check how our welds are from when we redid the rear end for the first time. I'm praying that those are still holding up, because if they are, then I'll just add a little bit of paint. Try to get rid of as much of the rust as I can. And then I've also got to paint the new stuff real quick just to make it as nice as possible. And this right here is why I've been putting antices on everything. I feel like a lot of people would think that it's overkill, but even just with stuff like this, like... My advice is that if I can put a little bit of antices anywhere like that, and it's gonna save me some time in the future trying to take this off, when this should have been a 2-minute job and now it's a 15 trying to remove it. I say do it if you can. I'm also praying that these spacers are gonna fit the M3 stuff, because I really don't want to have to buy anything else. Maybe. I think I could get them to fit. So this whole process is honestly super easy if you don't overcomplicate it. It's just 4 13mm back here. There's 8 more in the middle, and then these guys up here were annoyingly 14mm, but luckily none of them snapped on me with how rusty they are. After that, you can drop the exhaust, and then the heat shielding is a bunch of 10mm, and then the drive shaft to the diff is 4 E12s, in my case at least. Sometimes it's 6. Next, onto the actual subframe, it's 4 18mm, and then the trailing arms are 3 18s apiece. And after that, it's honestly just a couple connections here and there, and then I'm taking the brakes off and letting them hang since I'm replacing the lines and the calipers and everything. This thing is literally hanging on by a thread. So your next step after that is gonna be to struggle with this and try to get it off the stud for 30-45 minutes, or if you wanna do it your way and just get it off easy, you could do that as well, but this is how it works for me. I forgot to show these 2 little channels as well. This is where the e-brake cables lead up into the car, and they get extremely seized into there. So if you're getting held up, that might be one of the things keeping you stuck. And they're 2 10mm that go right here, these little guys. So yeah, don't forget about that too. So now that that guy's out, let's do our first look to how the reinforcement plates are holding up. So the thing with these was I did a very bad job welding them in, because I didn't know how to weld, and there was a bunch of different things going on. It was winter and I was outside. But yeah, this one looks pretty good. By the gas tank, this was another thing. Last time I was too nervous to take everything out, so I just dropped the subframe and the diff. This time I wanted to remove everything so that I could really work on the rust that's under here and clean this whole thing and just kind of get it coated with something, because rust is one of my big OCD things that I hate to have underneath the car. Also, this looks like this. That's a little bit concerning. One thing I might do is grind them down now that I'm inside and everything, and clean up the welds, do a little bit more welding before I close this all back up. got the drill with the brush going, and I'm going around basically just cleaning up all these old welds and tacking down the sketchy parts like this that need tagged down. So I'm not going to go through the whole welding process and all that because the video that came out just before this was about that. So if you want to see more in detail how this went, you can watch that. Essentially, I just go over and I finish the welds all the way around, even though they're the shittiest looking welds that you can find. And then I grind them down to look somewhat reasonable. And then I put primer, silicone, and paint. And they held up really well before, so I'm not worried about them holding up. But I'm just hoping that I don't get any more rust after all this stuff. So this next portion of the video is brought to you by
EAKMA-DASHMA.
I try to ignore your guys' comments just like everybody else since I'm a big YouTuber now. But you wanted to see how the tacks turned out in the last video for the trunk. They are honestly not really good at all, but this is how I ended up leaving it. It's sealed enough at least, and I did the primer on top still and some silicone that I just had sitting around, and then I ended up painting the whole trunk because that's how this thing works. I do something small in there, and then I realized that everything else looks bad, so I took a paintbrush and a roller and went through the entire trunk. So I'm dropping the gas tank right now, which I realized on my way home to park this in here. I filled it with gas for whatever reason. I guess I wasn't thinking about it. So hopefully that's not too heavy, but also looking at these being a little rusty, I wanted to make some reinforcement plates like they sell. They're only like 20 bucks, but I wanted to try to print some, so let's see what we're looking like. That might work. Oh yeah, check that out. I think that honestly might fit pretty good. This would be really lucky because I've never got the measurements of something right the first try. But I mean, I could see some people maybe saying that it's sketchy because they're not real metal, but I'll try them out and let you guys know. And if these actually work, I'll post the files on the Bamboo app if anybody else wants to try them out. So we're moving the gas tank with one person. Here's the plan. I've got this side lowered down a bit on the jack. I'm gonna do it, whoa, yeah, quite a bit. Just making sure that it's not pulling on anything up there. And then I'm gonna go on that side, hold it up with one hand, loosen it, and then try to lower it. Like I said, this is full, so I don't know how heavy it's gonna be, but hopefully not too crazy. Let's see. Rip these up real quick. Okay. Oh yeah, the way that I'm patching these up as well is I just cut some fingers off the gloves and then zip tied them on. So hopefully that'll make it to where they don't leak like crazy. She's off. Oh yeah, even completely full, it's not crazy heavy, but I would definitely recommend if you're planning to do this, do it on an empty tank. It'd be a lot easier. Nice. Nice. I think the exhaust gases are trying to tell me something. Yes, they want me to install all that. Sweet. So I got the gas tank out here with everything else is outside. This stuff lives outside normally, so I don't care. For the gas tank, I put some plastic over it to hopefully prevent too much rain from getting on it and into it. And then I've got each hole zip tied to hopefully prevent me from trying to drink out of them. So gas tank's out. Look at all this open space. It's beautiful. I don't know why, but it's kind of funny to me that you can just park your car in the garage and pull down the entire rear end of the car. A little funny looking. All right, I got the rear bumper off now too, just so I can get into all of this at the same time. So here is our last view of what the underside looks like before I clean it. Hopefully it should be a pretty good transformation. So as far as cleaning goes, there's a million better ways to do this. And if you have a pressure washer, it would be so much easier. But with me being in my garage and I don't have a pressure washer, the process went like this. I have purple power in a spray bottle. So I spray everything and then brush it down as good as I can. And then come in with a pump bottle. And then I sprayed it down. And it honestly is a little bit of a funky method and got water everywhere. But at the end of the day, it turned out really nice for everything. And I think it's got a paint surface that is at least going to hold some things. So this is how I left it. Now that the back was clean, it was time to remove the transmission so I could clean all up in there. And there's a ton of tutorials on how to remove those, so I won't go too in depth with it. But the one thing that nobody ever tells you is, especially by yourself, how hard it is to wiggle this thing off and to get it free. I guarantee one thing for sure is when I'm putting it back in, I'm going to jack up the front of the engine to make the engine kind of tilt down a little bit more. But I spent at least 3.5 hours down here just wiggling, trying to get it off. Why? And then it finally, of course, came off. So, hypothetically, if I pull back, the front's gonna fall, but I got a jack stand there. What? No way. I'm balancing the transmission on the jack. Look. So it's completely out. If I move our jack stand, get the fuck out of the way. Go. Should hypothetically be able to lower this. No fucking way. Thank God that thing is out and in one piece. And now we know the filler plug right here is the perfect center of gravity for an E46 transmission. Whoa! So there's the question today. So there's the answer to the question I've been wondering for the year since I've got this thing is yes, you can remove your transmission on jack stands. The getting it back in part, I'm curious about how that's gonna go, but here's also the difference between the 6-speed from the M3 and the 5-speed. It's a little bit longer, so you need either a custom or an M3 drive shaft and rear end. Luckily, the dude who I got this from threw in a solid one-piece drive shaft, so I thought that was insanely awesome. And the only thing I'm curious about is I noticed this one, the spots for the transmission mounts are basically non-existent. They're supposed to look like that. And they're also further back. So I don't know if I have to get a completely different mount or what I have to do for mounting this. But I guess we'll see. And I also have to get that fixed. So real quick, here's a rundown of my rust removal and painting process. So I like this rust dissolver by Rust-Oleum. You gotta get the jelly kind. And then I coat the bolts in it, coat everywhere that I can see rust on these. And then after I rinse them off and scrape off the rust, I'm hitting them with, it's like a rust primer thing. So there's that. And then I really like Rust-Oleum Farm Paint. This is really strong, super thick stuff. Then for the brake components, stuff that's gonna get hot, I like this. And then for the bolts, I'm gonna do silver to make them look a little bit better. So now after a little bit of painting later, the bottom of this car is honestly looking so nice, you guys. I'm so happy with the way that it turned out. I also went ahead and I sprayed some fluid film in like every single crack I could find back here. I just want zero rust on the bottom of this, and I'm really hoping this holds up for at least like a week. But anyways, if you guys like this video, I'm making the next one right now, putting everything back in. Please like and subscribe. It's not like I can put a bomb in your phone that's going to explode in 10 seconds if you don't, but either way, I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you liked it.